What's going on, guys? JPA Trades here, and in this video we're going to be going over the challenge account, where we're at with it, some of the trades we took, and just a little bit of the risk management style psychology I like to use when trading on a smaller account versus with my bigger account. But before we get into this thing, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and if you really like it here, feel free to join and be a channel member. Get a little nice little helmet by your name. But let's go ahead, let's get into it. Challenge account update, $2,300. That's awesome. Here's all the trades below. Vago, no good. First Nvidia trade, pretty good. Second Nvidia trade we took, awesome. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Is the Nvidia's 114 calls we bought on July 30th. So I have this wedge pattern that I've already put it on Twitter for us all. So just kind of showing what we're doing here. One wedge to roll ball, but we're going to remove everything here and just start it fresh at kind of what I was looking at on that particular day. So let's go ahead and crank this to the 90. And I don't need to see extended hours trading. All right, guys. So remember when I said we need to pay attention to this one wick because I said this is a big buyer that stepped up. So that big buyer was stepped up. So I bought 106 and we kept selling all day. And we were actually down 40% in these calls at one point for those 114s. So why did I stay in even though we clearly kept falling down? Like, there doesn't really look to be any clear reason why we stopped where we stopped, right? Like, there's a little action here at like 102, which is where it stopped kind of at the end. But I mean, that's not really a big enough candle for me to want to. I mean, it's a pretty nice wick, but nothing to really write home about. So I was waiting on AMD. So let's just go back to AMD. So pretty god awful looking chart here, right? So got that one nice little earnings candle. But here's where I was looking. And if you remember when Tesla had their earnings, Tesla had a pretty nice bounce on bad numbers after an intense sell down. So we were already down basically 30% going into AMD earnings. And in my opinion, that was pretty overdone. Of course, we're still going down, but at some point, the bad news starts to get baked into these things. So AMD was already down 30%. In my opinion, when we go back to Nvidia, people were taking risk off going into AMD's earnings because same way there was this awesome reaction up, there could have also been a terrible reaction down. But you kind of noticed if we go to extended hours trading, we had people buying at 100, which 100 is a psychological level, like the big triple digits, and it was 100.01. So there was definitely tons and tons of more orders out there sitting at 100. So I wasn't overly concerned about being like averaging down right at 10, like it was 103, 102 at close. So I was already in at 106. If it was going to work, it was really going to work. And if it wasn't going to work, it was really not going to work. So I was focused on taking this big buyer here and saying, okay, someone who cares about this enough to kind of stop the wholesale down and cause that spike back up, they're here for a reason. So it ended up working really, really well. And the question you guys might have is, okay, and I saw someone even kind of made fun of me a little bit, like if you just would have bag held it all, you would have finished the challenge account at one go. And the reason for that is when you're in a small account, you just got to get those profits locked up because sometimes it works great. Like here's a 600%. I kept two to go for 1,000%, and this last 1,000% got blown to shreds. So I just want, like right here, this guy, absolute regard challenge account would have been completed if you held for the 10x. And you know this dude's a funny guy, so I appreciate him always commenting on the channel. Kyle, this is not a joke or any way me pick on you, but yeah, it's always tough to want to hold for more, especially when you're small and you know, like, hey, if I can just get that extra 100%, like this is my chance to get like my account really moving and everything. But what really gets your account moving is just those consistent gains. So let's just go back to the day of. So there's the doubter one. So basically, right at open, I sold 5 out of the 6 that we bought. Like literally off open. Like here's the time, 9:31. And It was great. So we got about 200%. That was more than I could have asked for. I was only ever shooting for 100%. And if you notice, I'm selling 5 of them, which is most of my position, right? Because the move happened. So, like, and now at this point, I'm waiting for a continued breakout. And there's breakout traders that just wait all day for these breakouts to happen. And when you're in before the breakout, you kind of get that move up to those breakout points. And then you also potentially get the breakout, but there's tons of failed breakouts, breakdowns happening in the market all the time. And I know that's a lot kind of discouraging for people because, like, oh, it looked like this chart was going to break out, then it just didn't work. And it's like, oh, so close, but so far away. So you really got to stay just look. Like I said, I like the Wicks because that's telling me where big players are moving up and down, and the patterns are useful for kind of getting a hint of what can happen. But I really like the Wicks the most for just kind of my style of trading. And it actually did continue to break out. Like the same thing, took 250%. Pelosi came out as one of the dip buyers that last week. So this is kind of another big tip I want to show you guys. So 726, Pelosi had bought more, which what day was that? The 25th, there was that stop, and her announcement got made on about the 26th. So did she know who was buying there? Did someone tip her off? I don't know, but these Wicks tipped me off, right? So I knew big players are out there. Big players are still in there. Like there's still some pretty nice looking big Wicks here where those stops are trying to happen at 101. Like they're really going to try to prevent that 100 from happening. If we do go under 100, guys, I do think we are going to see pretty significantly lower. I wouldn't be like everyone's talking about 95. Here's the thing: when everyone's talking about something that's normally not the bottom, I wouldn't be surprised if we fall under 100 to see maybe the high 80s or not. Like I would say probably high 80s before we see a bounce if we really start selling on some terrible news. But until 100 breaks, I'm not going to be sweating that. And we just kind of go back to our daily here, and I'll just kind of show you quickly what I'm looking at. So locked on the wrong one. Just taking these couple wicks up, couple wicks back, and just kind of making the nicest looking trend line I can here. And here's the other thing. Like, yeah, you can keep lowering these down kind of to prevent it, because in reality, this 100 level is actually a pretty big psychological level, like I mentioned, holding this whole thing up. And if I'm going long and rambling here, you guys can turn the video off, but just, like to ramble a little bit. So about where it stopped, and we'll make it close enough there. But we need to get some kind of breakout here before earnings on the 28th. And I really don't think we're going to see it. And I'm kind of skeptical that we're going to see a breakdown. If we do see a breakdown before earnings, I mean, again, probably, not financial advice at all, but I probably want to be in some side of a semiconductor company before Nvidia earnings if we do keep seeing drawdowns in semis, because I think everything always lasts a little bit longer than everyone thinks, and everything always takes longer than everyone thinks. So, is it over for Nvidia and all the semiconductor trade? Probably not, is my opinion. But like I said on Twitter, I'm too stupid to make these broader market guesses, which is why I like to stick to 1 week, 2 weeks out trades, and not get overly caught up in trying to look like a genius in front of the world. I just kind of want to look like kind of smart for a day or two. So that's kind of my big focus there. And then I asked you guys some questions on what you wanted to see for like other things in this video. And I think what I want to talk about is kind of why I decided the risk management type that I did for this challenge account. So the reason I picked the 50% usage of portfolio, 50% exit, is because when you're small, you got to take big risks. And I know it's kind of not a jerk thing to say, but everyone has a certain level of dollars they can get in the market to get started that you're comfortable losing. So if you're comfortable losing 250 and you're like, well, if something bad happens, I can find a way to make another 250 bucks, that might just be where you need to start at. And if that was me, I would, let's just say $200 is all the more you had was $200. And you're like, I just got to get started somewhere. Don't put $200 in your first trade. Maybe don't even put $100 in your first trade, but at least put $50 in. and then kind of use that 50% stop loss. And if you're aiming for 100%, like every two moves you make up is prevents one move back. So it's kind of one of those things where as long as you're taking your first trim at 100%, you can use that 50% stop, which is what I've been doing with these alerts on here. Is when I get to 100%, I trim most, if not all, of my position in the challenge account. And in the big account, you'll notice that I take my trims at 50%, and that's just because I'm playing with a little bit more dollars. But I also hold them till zero because at the same time, some of these I'm holding all the way after that 600% gain. So if I can get a couple 600% gains, that really prevents a lot of drawdowns. But until you kind of get like, people ask me like, what's a big account? And I mean, in reality, once you kind of clear like, I don't want to sound like it's a lot, but 15 or 20,000. I know that's a lot for some people to get up to that point. That's where in my opinion, it starts to get a lot easier from you have enough dollars where it might feel like something a little more. I know taking $100 and turning it into $200, like people are like, oh, I only made $100, but what you got to look at is the percents, which is why I normally don't post my dollars gain because I don't care if I make $1,000 or $10,000 or whatever $1,000 it is. I care about me and everybody else getting a nice percent gain because you might have one contract, I'm gonna have 25 contracts. It doesn't matter how many. We both got that gain, and that's all we care about is moving it forward. So for this challenge account here, as long as we keep going up with that 50% stop, 100% double, we're just going to use, like I said, next trade will be $1,100. So that's about half, 50% stop. So if I get reset, I'm going back to what, 15, 1600, somewhere in there. But if I can get that step up again, we go up to about $3,400, $3,500. And I do it again, about $45,000, $5,000. So only really need a couple more steps to really make that impact. And it's up to you whenever you want to turn the gas off. Like you don't need to keep that 50% risk on your portfolio, but you do got to kind of be in a much more risk up environment when you're small. And I saw people were selling out before AMD's earnings because yeah, if it would have went bad, you probably would have lost all of it. But at the same time, when you entered the trade, the plan was to risk 50%. At the end of the day, we were still only down 40%. So you still had 10% of risk there, and it's very scary in the moment. But when you make your plan beforehand, like you'll be much more happy with yourself, and at least you can go down knowing you did what you wanted to do. Like same thing with that challenge account, Nvidia 114. I sold 200% at open because I said whatever I can get it open, I'm taking it because it's going to be over 100%, and it was way more than 100%. And then it runs 600%. I was like, I could have been done with this challenge account already, but I stuck to my plan. I'll always be happy sticking to the plan. And I think that's just the mindset a lot of us need to get in is make your plan, do what you got to do. And no matter what, if you stick to your plan, you try your best. That's all you can do. So I hope this video helped. If you guys have any suggestions or comments, leave them down below. Have an awesome weekend. And we'll see you out there this week.